Ever find yourself wishing you could just, like, think something into existence?
Mm.
I know, right? I mean, who hasn't?
Yeah.
And that's kind of what we're diving into today, this whole
Yeah.
idea of the law of attraction.
Right.
You've sent over some really interesting excerpts,
Yeah.
looks like from this master key system thing.
Mm.
And it's got me curious,
Yeah.
how this whole, like, thoughts become things idea
Yeah.
is actually supposed to work, especially in the real world.
Yeah, yeah.
Not just like, wishing on a star.
It's a fascinating concept,
Yeah.
isn't it? This
Yeah.
idea that we can, like, shape our reality with our thoughts.
Hmm.
It taps into, this deep desire I think we all have for a sense of control,
Of course.
agency. And you're right, your source material, this master key system,
Yeah.
it really leans into that idea of,
Mhm.
like, attracts, like,
Yeah.
arguing that, if you focus on positive thoughts,
Mm-hmm.
it can actually, like, draw in positive experiences.
Okay, so kind of like
Yeah.
setting my mental radio dial to the, like, good vibe station
Mm-hmm.
and then just waiting for the universe to deliver.
Right, exactly.
I'm all for a positive outlook, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But this source is claiming it's way more than that.
Yeah.
It's talking about it being like
Yeah,
a universal law,
right,
like as concrete as gravity.
right. And that's where we need to maybe, approach things with a little bit of a critical lens.
Okay.
While it does mention, this idea of scientific proof,
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't actually give us any specifics.
Sure.
So from a purely scientific standpoint,
Yeah.
there isn't a lot of hard evidence to back up this idea
Right.
of the law of attraction as, like, a literal force
Yeah,
of the
yeah.
universe.
So maybe the universe isn't like a cosmic delivery service
Right.
for all of our whims.
Yeah, exactly.
But this source does highlight some, I don't know,
Yeah.
interesting points, I guess you could say,
Yeah.
about
Yeah.
the power of positive thinking in general.
Mm-hmm.
It claims that positive thoughts are like magnitudes more powerful
Right.
than negative ones.
Yeah.
Is there actually any truth to that?
It's an interesting claim,
Yeah.
isn't it?
It is, yeah.
That specific claim about, like, the exact power difference, that feels a bit like motivational exaggeration
Okay.
without concrete research to actually back it up.
Right.
However,
Okay.
there are definitely areas where a positive mindset can have a measurable effect,
Okay.
for sure. Take the placebo effect, for example.
Yeah. Okay.
Simply believing that a treatment will work
Right.
can sometimes lead to actual physical improvement,
Wow.
which is, when you think about it, pretty remarkable.
That's wild. It's like our minds can trick our bodies into healing just through, like, belief.
It really is fascinating.
Is that what this source is getting at?
I think it's definitely in a similar vein.
Okay.
The source also talks about visualization techniques,
Okay.
similar to how,
Yeah.
Olympic athletes use mental imagery to prepare for competitions. They actually mention this visual motor test
Oh, yeah.
that I found quite compelling.
Yeah, I remember that from the materials.
Yeah.
What's so special about it?
Well, this test basically demonstrated that
Yeah.
when we vividly imagine physical actions, it actually activates the same neural pathways in our brains as
Wow.
actually physically performing those actions.
Oh, wow.
So while we may not be,
Yeah.
bending the universe to our will with our thoughts alone,
Right.
we might be influencing our brains and actions
Interesting.
more than we realize.
That's fascinating.
Yeah.
So even if it's not, like, magic per se,
Right.
harnessing the power of the mind can create real, tangible change.
It's a powerful tool,
Yeah.
for sure.
And speaking of harnessing, this source breaks down this whole manifestation process
Yeah.
into, like, 3 distinct steps.
Mm-hmm.
Asking, believing, and receiving.
Yes.
Can you elaborate on what that actually means?
Absolutely. The source really emphasizes that you need to be, like, crystal clear
Okay.
about what you want.
Mhm.
You have to cultivate this unwavering belief that it's already yours.
Okay.
And then genuinely embody the feeling of already having it.
Wow.
It's about aligning your thoughts, your feelings, and your actions
Okay.
with your desired outcome.
Right.
So it's really about getting all of those things in alignment.
Interesting. So it's not just like a wish list, right?
Okay.
It's about really, truly embodying the feeling of already having what you want.
Yeah.
I mean, that makes sense. But
Yeah.
I'm kind of curious about, like, the practicalities of it all, because
Mhm.
the source keeps mentioning this idea of unlimited abundance.
Yeah.
But, like, in the real world,
Yeah.
resources are limited, right?
Right.
So how does that work?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
And it's something that, a lot of people kind of get hung up on, right?
Right, right.
Because you're right. We don't live in a world where everybody can just have an unlimited supply of everything.
Right.
So when
Yeah.
the source talks about unlimited abundance,
Yeah.
it might be more helpful to kind of think of it as
Okay.
more of an internal state rather than like purely material wealth.
Okay. Okay. Yeah.
It's about shifting like your mindset
Okay.
from one of scarcity to one of possibility,
Right.
and focusing on
What you can create and cultivate within, the reality of the world that we live in.
I see. So it's less about like
Yeah.
bending the universe to my will
Right.
and more about recognizing like
Right.
my own potential and the opportunities that actually do exist.
Exactly.
I like that. But then how do you actually make that shift?
Right.
Does this source offer any like practical advice?
Absolutely. Yeah. So
Okay.
beyond, the ask, believe, receive process,
Right.
they also emphasize things like practicing gratitude, visualization,
Okay.
giving.
Right.
And, these can be really powerful tools, even if you don't necessarily buy into,
Yeah.
the whole law aspect of it.
Right. Okay. Color me intrigued. I can get behind like a good gratitude journal.
But how does that tie into like manifesting your dream life?
Well, think about it this way.
Okay.
When you focus on what you're grateful for,
Mm-hmm.
it kind of shifts your perspective, right?
Okay.
From what you lack
Right.
to what you already have.
Right.
And research has actually shown that this very simple act, this like gratitude,
Yeah.
can actually have a ripple effect
Wow.
on, your overall well-being
Mm-hmm.
and even your decision making.
Interesting. So it's less about like magically willing things into existence,
Right.
and more about cultivating that positive mindset
Yeah.
that can like open you up
Exactly.
to possibilities and opportunities.
Yeah, it's about being open to receiving,
Right. Right. Yeah.
And speaking of opening yourself up,
Yeah.
the source also talks about
The power of visualization.
Okay.
And they even go so far as to suggest creating vision boards.
Yes.
Yeah.
The classic vision board. It sounds very like
Yeah.
arts and crafts for manifesting, but
Yeah.
I'm guessing there's more to it than just gluing magazine cutouts to a poster board.
It's not just about,
Yeah.
the like aesthetic of it,
Right.
Think of it less as like magic
Okay.
and more as intentional goal setting.
Right.
Because when you create that vision board, when you're looking at it or you're like vividly imagining your desired outcome,
Okay.
you're essentially, priming your mind to start to like recognize opportunities
Right.
that are going to align with that vision.
That makes sense.
Right. And plus,
Who doesn't love
Yeah.
a little creative expression?
right.
It can be fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a fun way to kind of like
Yeah.
explore your goals and aspirations.
Yeah. I have to admit, I do love a good art project.
Right.
It does sound like there's real value to
Yeah.
consciously visualizing.
For sure.
But there was one more element from the source material
Mm-hmm.
that I wanted to kind of touch on.
Okay.
And that was giving,
Right.
it felt like a little bit of a curveball.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm thinking, like, is the universe keeping like a cosmic scorecard?
All right, exactly.
Like rewarding us for our good deeds? Like, what's the deal there?
Not quite. The source talks about giving from a place of abundance rather than a place of lack.
Right.
So it's not about like depleting all of your resources. It's more about embodying that feeling of having more than enough to share.
Okay.
And that generosity, that outward focus,
Yeah.
it can have a surprisingly powerful impact
Okay.
on our own well-being. It can even like inspire positive change in the world around us.
That's a beautiful way to frame it.
Yeah.
So it's not about like bribing the universe.
Right.
It's about cultivating that mindset
Exactly.
of generosity and abundance.
Mm-hmm.
I love that. But I have to ask,
Yeah.
if we are these creators of our own reality, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like the source suggests, doesn't that get like a little complicated?
It can, yeah.
Because, I mean, we don't live in a vacuum.
Right.
What happens when like my vision for my life
Right.
clashes with someone else's vision?
That's a really, really insightful question. And
Yeah.
it gets to the heart of one of the common tensions, I think, with this whole law of attraction thing.
Right, right.
Because you're absolutely right. We live in a world where we're all interconnected. Our actions impact other people.
Right.
The Source seems to kind of address this by emphasizing that our focus should really be on our own personal growth and well-being, and not necessarily on trying to, like, manipulate or control external circumstances or other people.
Okay, so no more, like, wishing ill on my rivals.
Right, exactly.
Hoping that their projects fail so that mine can succeed.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, probably for the best, karmically speaking. But
exactly.
It does make me wonder about things like, career advancement. If I'm busy, like, manifesting that promotion.
Yeah.
Does that mean someone else is, like, automatically destined to miss out?
That's the paradox, isn't it?
Right.
And I think this is where the Source encourages us to kind of, like, shift our thinking again.
Okay.
From, like, a competitive mindset to one of cooperation.
Okay.
And to really recognize our own agency within this larger system.
Okay.
So it's not about, like, willing things to happen at the expense of other people.
Right.
But it's more about, like, focusing on your own growth, your own contribution.
So less about controlling the universe and more about mastering yourself.
Exactly. It's a subtle but really, really important distinction.
Okay.
The Source seems to suggest that true power really lies.
Yeah.
Not in manipulating these, like, external forces.
Right.
But in, like, understanding and harnessing the power of your own mind and your own actions.
That actually reminds me of a time when... That actually reminds me of this time I was, like, totally convinced I needed this one specific job to, like, actually feel successful.
Right.
And I spent weeks, like, visualizing it.
Yeah.
Putting all my energy into, like, manifesting that specific outcome. And then, like, I ended up getting passed over.
Oh, wow.
And I was crushed, naturally.
Yeah.
But looking back, it kind of pushed me to, like, reevaluate what I actually wanted in my career,
Right.
And I ended up going in a totally different direction.
Yeah.
That honestly brought me way more fulfillment than I could have ever imagined.
It's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah.
How those moments that initially, like, feel like setbacks can actually end up being, like, these catalysts for growth.
So true, yeah.
Yeah.
It was a good reminder that, like, we can't always control, like, those external circumstances.
Right.
But we can control how we respond and what we choose to focus on.
Exactly. And, that seems to be, like, a central theme in all of this material.
Yeah.
It's less about, like, manipulating the universe to bend to our will.
Right.
And more about recognizing our own agency and then focusing on, like you were saying, the things that we can control.
Right.
Like our thoughts, our beliefs, our actions.
Exactly. Like, I'm not guaranteed that parking space,
Yeah, exactly.
And I can't control whether or not I get that promotion.
Yeah.
But I can choose how I, like, approach those situations, how I react to those challenges, and how I, show up in the world.
Yeah, I love that. It's about, like, how we choose to show up.
Right, exactly.
Even when things don't go our way.
Right, and that's huge.
Yeah, it's a subtle shift in perspective.
Yeah.
But it's really powerful.
It is, yeah.
It's like, even if we see that the law of attraction isn't, like, this scientifically proven the universe, right?
Right, right.
It still offers, like, a really valuable framework for intentional living.
It's about becoming more conscious creators of our experiences.
Absolutely.
You say.
Yeah, the Source encourages us to really examine those beliefs, get clear about those desires, and then, like you were saying, align our actions with those aspirations.
Right.
It's about, recognizing those aha moments and then actually, like, acting on them, trusting our intuition, having the courage to, like, take that leap of faith when it feels aligned,
And maybe that's the real magic of it all.
Right.
Right? Not, like, some mystical force out there.
Right.
But our own inherent ability to shape our reality through the choices that we make and the actions that we take.
Beautifully said. And, ultimately, I think that's the message that really resonates.
Okay.
Even if, we take the law part with a grain of salt.
Right.
It's really a call to approach life with that sense of purpose, to cultivate gratitude for what we have, and to choose our thoughts and actions like intentionally and with awareness.
It's a beautiful thing.
It is.
So as we kind of wrap up this deep dive here, I want to leave you with this.
Okay.
If we are the creators of our own reality, even in some small way, what kind of world are we choosing to create?
That's the question.
Right.
It is the question.
Both for ourselves and for others.
Yes.
It's definitely something to ponder
Something to think about.
as you move through your day.
For sure.
Thanks for joining us on this thought-provoking journey.
It has been fascinating.
It has been. Until next time.